Right, Nick, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. Major overhaul going on in the coaching staff, but that might not be the last major overhaul the Atlanta Falcons are going to have to go through if they want to get this team where they want to be, and that is to make a deep playoff run. There's going to be some things that need to be fixed, and head coach Raheem Morris made some comments on just that. Let's get into the article, and we could talk about it on the other side. This is from over on NBC Sports. Says Falcon head coach Raheem Morris said at a Monday press conference that he embraces the fact this job comes with the pressure to win right off the bat, and his chances of doing so will be helped a lot if he can find the right quarterback to lead the offense. Arthur Smith backing of Desmond Ridder for that role is a big part of the reason of why Morris is now the head coach in Atlanta. But Morris says he's only had brief conversations with those in the organization about the position at this point. He did not share any thoughts on Ridder, but said he's used to a very high level after coaching on teams with Matt Ryan and Matthew Stafford, respectively. Morris called those players elite processors and said the Falcons will explore every option available to them as they tried to find one this offseason. Sometimes you have to look at the college tape and you can see a little bit in free agency. You can visualize how you can trade, Morris said via the team's website. You have all of those windows out there. You have all of those avenues, but I have a lot of confidence in the people who are going to be able to help me be a part of finding our next quarterback to move forward. And he didn't exactly say what they're going to do, but reading between the lines, the context here, the fact that, Arthur Smith is out because of his endorsement of who he trusted at the quarter position in a small or rather medium to large part is why that he is no longer the head coach of this team. He couldn't get it right. So I think Raheem Morris knows this is really important. I'm curious what your thoughts are on Morris's statements here and what this means for the quarterback position. But Falcons fans, let us know in the comments below. What do you think is going to happen with the quarterback position on this team? I think we can all agree no one on the roster right now is going to fill the role. So who are you looking at as a realistic possibility to be the future quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons? Let us know in the comments below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on these latest comments by Morris?
So you have to look at the entire context and the entire situation heading into the offseason. I think the first thing you'll notice in the statements is Raheem Morris saying he hasn't spent a lot of time talking to the current quarterbacks on the roster. Every single other circumstance where a new head coach goes to a team, he immediately, if he's big on the quarterbacks there, immediately finds one, and they're very vocal and public about their support. The famous example of this is Mike McDaniel when he joined the Miami Dolphins, and his very vocal and public support of Tua. The fact that Raheem Morris and no one else from Atlanta right now has come out and been very publicly supportive of Desmond Ridder or anybody else on the roster for that matter, pretty much guarantees they're moving off those guys going forward, and it's going to be a change in the quarterback position, which is needed. Anyone with half a brain who watched football, especially in the NFC South this past season, understands that the Falcons were probably the best team in terms of talent outside the quarterback position, where they were god-awful terrible, to be totally blunt. If they had average to above average quarterback play, this team probably wins the division. They probably beat the Philadelphia Eagles at home in the first round of the playoffs, and maybe they beat the Detroit Lions in divisional round. The Buccaneers gave them a good run, but I honestly think the Falcons are more talented than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So let's look at the landscape here, right? The Falcons pick 8th in the NFL draft. The top 3 quarterback prospects will be gone. So the Falcons aren't going to probably get a good quarterback at 8. They could trade back. But I think listening to what Raheem Morris said there, he's like, listen, I want guys who are good processors, Stafford, Ryan. To me, that's an indicator that he wants veterans. He wants guys who have done this before. And if you look at the Atlanta Falcons, they do have $25 million in salary cap right now. So they've got some flexibility in the salary cap department. And then you look who's available. So right now you have 2 top flight I say top flight, that's probably an overestimation. They got 2 quality starting quarterbacks on the market. They're on void deals right now, but that means they'll still probably be cut. You start with Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings and Ryan Tannehill of the Tennessee Titans. I think Cousins is the perfect fit. I think Cousins is the ideal fit. And right now, if you look at the Minnesota Vikings, they want to move off of Kirk Cousins. If the Minnesota Vikings can get something in return for Kirk Cousins, even if it's just a 3rd or 4th or 5th round pick, they'll be happy to do that to help alleviate some of those dead cap dollars they would have to take if they just cut Kirk Cousins outright, which I think they're going to try and do. And the Atlanta Falcons can take care of this opportunity and get their quarterback before he goes on the open market. I think this makes perfect sense. I think this is exactly where Raheem Morris is heading right now. And look, I know Falcons fans are like, Kirk Cousins, is he really the savior? The answer is no. But he gets you competitive. He gets you back into the postseason. He gets you winning division titles, having winning seasons again. And now every season, whether it's in the first round, second round, or third round, you draft a quarterback. Eventually, you'll find your guy, and then you'll be in a perfect situation to make a long-term run. But it starts with being competitive again. It starts with winning the division again. It starts with living up to your talent again. And a guy like Kirk Cousins getting a trade with the Minnesota Vikings to acquire him. Again, I think you'll get him at a bargain discount rate, would be the perfect move for the Atlanta Falcons. And I think that's exactly what Raheem Morris is signaling here.
And then you look at the Vikings team, if you're talking about what Kirk Cousins can bring to the table, you look at that O line, their O line, not quite as good as the Falcons O line, especially the interior. The Falcons look very stout there. The tackles look serviceable, at least as good as the Vikings tackles. You look at their receivers, obviously, the Falcons don't quite have a Justin Jefferson level, but I think across the board, they are at the level of the Minnesota Vikings as far as receivers go. The Falcons have very talented receivers, especially at the tight end position. I think Kyle Pitts is a major upgrade athletically over a guy like Hawkinson. And I think at the running back position, the Falcons are much, much better than the Vikings are. So I think overall, you put Kirk Cousins in this Atlanta Falcons organization with all these weapons, with a little bit better offensive line. I think it would be a great fit, but it doesn't even have to be Kirk Cousins. Whoever they can get in this team, I think we see major upgrades over whoever they had on this team last year, and they were just that close to being a playoff contender last season. They just need to get the quarterback position right, and I think this team will be in a totally different situation this coming season.
And again, it's one of those things where if you look at the dollars and cents where it really matters, the Minnesota Vikings right now are basically in a situation they want to move off of Kirk Cousins. They're ready to move off of Kirk Cousins by all indications and rumors coming out of Minnesota. But if they were to cut him outright, they'd have $30 million of dead cap hitting on them this offseason and even more over the following years. That would be absolutely brutal. The best move for the Minnesota Vikings is to get rid of Kirk Cousins for something without cutting him. So this is an opportunity for the Minnesota Vikings to get what they want, to move on and maybe get something in return. They'll take anything, which opens up the door for the Atlanta Falcons and general manager Terry Fontenot, a sharp guy in his own right, to trade something very minor to get a guy like Kirk Cousins. And this is common, guys. This happens. Matt Ryan was traded, I believe, for a third-round pick at the at the end of his career. Excuse me. I think the Falcons could get Kirk Cousins for a third, maybe even a fourth or a fifth. And folks, again, Kirk Cousins, not the sexiest name in the world, but you take Kirk Cousins, a healthy Kirk Cousins, and if he was on this Falcons 2023 team, you're going to the divisional round of the playoffs, maybe even farther. And your team is probably going to be even better as you get a lot of these young guys on offense get better and better going into 2024, and you'll have better coaching, of course, obviously now too. I think the trade opportunity is there. I think based on these comments by Raheem Morris, they're very close to getting those gears rolling, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Falcons pull off this big-time trade at the quarterback position.